we go. This is the second part of Chapter 4, Section 8. And we are talking about the quadratic formula, and we're going to talk about today the discriminant. We've already worked example 1, so we're going to start on example 2. So example 2 looks like this: 25x squared minus 18x equal to 12x minus 9. All right, so they say solve using the quadratic formula. So tell me what I have to do first. Yeah, you got to get everything on one side and 0 on the other side. So we're going to subtract 12x, and we're going to add 9. So these go away, 0 equals. Over here you get 25x squared. What's a negative 18x and a negative 12x? Perfect. And then there's your plus 9. Okay, now listen to me. If, by chance, you made a bad grade on that test you finished yesterday, then you might want to be very, very careful on the next test. Because y'all, look, we still have one more test on Chapter 4. Okay? I've warned you consistently about Chapter 4. It is the hardest chapter in the book. It's also the longest chapter in the book.
That test and the one on Tuesday.
Now the one on Tuesday, and hopefully we'll get to have 3 more tests, okay? So that should kind of help you out. So hopefully we know we're going to have the test on Tuesday. It's just a memory test of deriving the quadratic formula. And then we're going to have a test on section 8, 9, and 10, okay? And then hopefully we can pop another test on chapter 5 in there, okay?
What's chapter 5 about?
It's a lot easier than chapter 4. Normally, this is the way it works in math. It's like up and down and up and down. So you do something really, really hard, and then the next thing you do is really easy.
We're on top of it right now.
Yeah, we're on the really hard part. But and the deal is, not only is it really hard, okay, but the mountain must be very long. All right, because it's lasting for a long time. There's 10 sections in this chapter. Okay, so it's difficult, and there's a lot of it. All right, so here we go. Here's some of the things. Look, these things that I do, these things are to help you keep from making careless mistakes. So I'm trying to set the example of what I think is best practice, okay? And I think that is to write out what's A, what's B, and what's C. Perfect, okay? Now, we're going to do the quadratic formula. I want you to say it to me. I want you to tell me the story, but I want it to be like you're in kindergarten choir, okay? So I'm going to start you out. I want you all standing at the same time. I don't want it like 9 different times. That will make my head spin, okay? So, I'll start you out and then you do it. There was a big boy who went to a radical party. There were square dancing. Perfect. Okay? Alright, so now all we're going to do is plug our stuff in. So x is equal to, this is the opposite of v. If v is negative 30, what's the opposite of negative 30? 30. Okay? Plus or minus the square root of, when they say v squared, technically it's negative 30 squared, but I always just drop the sign here because when you square something, you know it's going to be positive. So I'm just going to say 30 squared minus 4 times A is 25 and C is 9. All over 2A. Come on, Sam. Okay, I do need somebody else to do the book, touch the board because I can't. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I could, but just make a little squiggle mark or something on it. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, wait, and mark. So that's up there, and let's do this. Touch the third icon down, the mouse icon. Yes. Oh, it's minimize that. Now click on that blue square. Perfect. One more time. It says it's connecting at the bottom. Okay. late, man. You did it 5 times. All right, perfect. Thanks. All right. So all over 2 times A is 25. Okay, so it looks like we might need a calculator, but we don't. So 30 plus or minus. Let's do this out to the side. What's 30 squared? 900. 3 squared is 9, and then you have 2 zeros. Minus, there's only one negative sign. So what's 425? That's 100. What's 100 times 9? What is 900 times minus 900? What's 2 times 25? All right, so let's talk about this. So this is, what's the square root of 0? So 30 plus 0 or 30 minus 0 is still just what? 30. So I got 30 over 50. What happens? 0. So 3/5. So this is my solution set. Does everybody agree? These are my answers. Okay? Now, wait. It's a quadratic. We're supposed to have 2 answers, but I only have 1 answer. It's a double root. What do we write for a double root? DR, doctor. Now, let me tell you this. If you don't write DR, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to take points away, but if you do write it, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you a bonus point. Okay? I'm going to give you a bonus point. Because it's what I asked you to do. And it tells somebody that's looking at my paper, hey, there are 2 roots, but they're just both the same thing. Okay? Anybody got a question?
Does it matter if you are
No, it doesn't matter. Okay? Doesn't matter. All right. So, let's talk about what this would look like on a graph. Okay? Now, that solution, this answer down here is also a what?
Vertex on quadratic.
Yeah. But it's an x-intercept, right? And because there's only one of them, it is, like Spencer said, the vertex of that quadratic. So here's my 3/5, and so this is my vertex. Now, does this thing open up or down? Why?
Because
Yeah, this 25 right here is positive, so it says he opens up. Is he wider, narrower, or the same as the parent section? Much narrower, very much, because the bigger the number, greater than 1, means he's here. Matter of fact, if you grabbed him on a calculator, it'd probably just go, ruff, ruff, and just be almost a straight line. Okay? So I'm going to draw him very skinny. There he is. Okay, so that's what he looks like. Hey, what? I wonder if you could factor this thing. 25x squared minus 30x plus 9. I wonder if that would factor. You think it will?
probably
You know, 5, 5, 3, 3, kind of a,
Oh, so y'all are looking to see if it's special, right? So is this is the perfect square of what? 5. So that's 5x. This is the perfect square of what? 3. Is that middle term twice their product? Oh, so that means it's a perfect square trinomial, and it factors into the square root of the first, 5x. Keep the sign, always keep that first sign. Some of y'all didn't do that on your test. Minus, and the square root of the last, and then it's quantity squared. Now, if I set this equal to 0, what would I solve and find x to be? Yeah, 3/5. Okay? That's what we got down here. All right, anybody got a question? Okay, so let's do example 3. Example 3 looks like this. Negative x squared plus 4x equals 5. All right, tell me what to do first. Okay. Remember, in order to use the quadratic formula, it has to be in standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, so here it is. Now what are you going to do? There you go. A is equal to what? -1. What's b equal to? 4. What's c equal to? Okay, and so now we're going to write our quadratic formula. X is equal to, there was a negative, come on, Ken. Negative boy who was kind of iffy. He went to a radical party where there was square dancing, and he missed out on 4 awesome chicks. And it was is all over 2am. So we'll plug our stuff in. What's the opposite of 4? Negative 4. Plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times a is negative 1, c is negative 5, all over 2 times negative 1. All right, so now I'm just going to go out here. I'm just going to do this part right here. What's 4 squared? 16. What's 3 negative signs make? Yeah, minus. I don't worry about the 1. What's 4 times 5? What's 16 minus 20? So now I got negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 all over negative 2. Okay? So now I need to look at this radical. Can I take the square root of negative 4? As soon as I see that negative under the radical, what is the first thing that my brain goes? You're gonna have an I in your answer. And I cannot leave a negative under the radical. You have to pull the I out. Alright. So y'all said the square root of negative 4 is 2I. Now he looks like this. Can I reduce him? Yes, you can. Now remember, in order to reduce it, everybody has to be able to reduce. What can you reduce by? 2. So I'm going to do that. Let's take a second. So 2 goes into 2 how many times? 2 goes into 4 how many times? 2 goes into 2, 1. Now all I have on the bottom is a negative 1. So I don't want to write that 1. But I can't just chunk this negative. What's this negative going to do up here? Change the sign. Okay, so watch this for a second before you write it down. What's the opposite of this negative 2? Positive 2. Now watch this. What does this negative sign do to the plus or minus?
Doesn't do anything.
It makes it a what? Minus plus, right? But that's not, we don't write that like that. It's not proper. So we just always write it as a plus or minus. No, we don't put a minus sign, because that's what this negative did. It really just flipped those signs. Okay, because remember, it's really negative 2 plus I and negative 2 minus I. Okay, so now it's really minus or plus, but we still write it this way, because this is the proper way to write it. So there's my solution set. Everybody agree with that? Okay, we'll put it in the little bracket so you recognize it.
So the minus one affects the symbol, the plus or minus from the I, because it says the I is both positive and negative.
Yeah.
And you're saying it's not both
Negative and positive, but we still write it this way. But it's the same thing, right? Isn't it 2 plus I and 2 minus I? Aren't those your 2 roots? Even if I wrote it like this. Oh. See, I can't even write it wrong. It's crazy. Like that little twisting thing. Isn't that the same thing as this? Yeah, but this looks weird. If you wrote this, a mathematician would go, what? What in the world are they doing? They would think you didn't know what you were talking about, okay? So, now let's think about what that's going to look like on my coordinate plane, okay? Because really, these are all about parabolas, right? All right. Let's see. Where is 2 plus I and 2 minus I on the x-axis?
Well, isn't the y-axis...
Now listen to me. Y'all listen to me, okay? Let's not, this is what the other class did too, okay? This is the x-axis. This is the y-axis. Do you see up here any real and imaginary axis? No. This is the x-axis, and this is the y-axis, okay? This is not on this coordinate plane. Now, if they said graph it on a real and imaginary axis, you could do it. Most of you could. There were some of you that didn't know what you were doing. But there was one like that on the test, right? That should have been a giveaway problem, shouldn't it? Okay? So, but y'all listen to me. This is not the real axis, and that's the imaginary axis. What axis is this? X. this? Let me ask it another way. What's this point right here? And this? Okay, what about this? So where are the imaginary numbers? There aren't any, people. This is not on the x-axis. How many times is this thing going to cross the x-axis? Never. Never, ever. There is an x-axis. It's right here. Okay? So what's it going to look like? Well, how does your parabola open? Down. Okay? So where's the vertex? If it never crosses the x-axis and it opens down, where does the vertex have to be?
Either in quadratic or 4.
Right, it has to be below the x-axis. This one looks something like this. That's what it's going to look like. Okay? Now let's talk about one other thing, because this is what we've done with every one of them. What about factoring this thing? Negative x squared plus 4x minus 5. What if I wanted to factor it? Well, first of all, if I wanted to factor it, what would I do? Yeah, y'all, I'm not going to factor with a negative quadratic. It makes it very, very difficult. And it makes the rules that your head's thinking different. All right? So, look, if it's equal to 0, you can either think of it this way. I can divide both sides by -1. It'll change all the signs over here. And what's 0 divided by -1? Or I could say, oh, I don't like that. I'm going to put all of these on this side and then put the 0 on the other side. Isn't that the same thing? It's you know, 6, half dozen, whatever you want to do. But it's going to look like this. X squared minus 4x plus 5. Change all the signs. Can we factor this thing? That's really what I'm asking. X squared factors into x and x, right? What's the plus sign at the end mean? Same as signs, and the same as this one. So minus and minus. Now listen to me, okay? Because see, your brain is saying yes, yes, yes. But I'm telling you, no, no, no.
Looking at the
So, yeah, your brain's saying with the 5, yeah, I can make a 4, but can you find the factors of 5 that add to be 4?
Oh, no, that's what I was about.
He doesn't factor. He doesn't factor. Okay? Alright, so we've looked at 3 different things, right? Now, here's what I want to talk about. This is what the rest of this section is all about. It's about this thing called the discriminant. Discriminatory, right? Discriminant. I don't know. Does it have an E? No, it doesn't have an E. Oh. Discriminant. Okay. Now, remember when we did the factoring worksheet? And you were like, oh, Miss Davis, how do I know if this doesn't factor or if I just don't have the skills to do it right now? Y'all remember that? And so I ended up telling you there are 3 on this sheet that won't factor. The discriminant is going to tell you if it will factor. So that's pretty nice. I mean, because y'all listen, if I just say solve a quadratic, what's the fastest way to solve it? Factoring. Okay? But if I try to factor for 5 minutes and then I can't get it factored, I keep saying, well, surely there's a way to factor it. But if I just look at the discriminant, which takes, look at calculator, less than 5 seconds, then I can say, yes, I want to keep trying, or no, give it up because it doesn't factor. Okay? So here's what the discriminant is. B squared minus 4AC. That's the discriminant. B squared minus 4AC. Now, have you ever seen that before? Where? Under the radical. So the discriminant is the number under...
Wait, is that a minus? B squared or...
Minus 4AC. Now,
That's
an error. What is the discriminant? B squared minus 4AC. Hashtag under the radical. Okay? Now, listen to me. So if the number under the radical is 25, is the discriminant 25 or 5?
25.
Yeah. Y'all, do you see a radical right here? Then don't be taking the square root of it. Okay? That's going to say, now listen to me, I'm telling you this. There are going to be 4 questions on the test, and they're going to say, what's the value of the discriminant? A third of the kids in this classroom are going to miss it because y'all are going to do what? Take the square root. And y'all listen, it is not, you do not take the square root. Okay? It's just b squared minus 4ac. You have a calculator. Should you miss that? People, plug it in the calculator if you want to. But you ought not be missing that.
We're gonna have an actual legitimate calculator behind.
Yeah.
Or the one last time we did.
That was a real calculator too. Just some of you didn't know how to use it.
It was pretty good.
It was primitive.
Wait,
Not
so if it's the square root of 25, the answer would be 25?
Yes. The number under the radical. Do not take the square root of it. Okay, so now we're going to make a big chart. And I'm going to tell you, y'all will be amazed at what all the discriminant tells you. Okay? So, make you a big chart. In our first, look, in our first column, we're going to put discriminant. I just spelled that, didn't I?
Discriminant.
I'm
I was wondering, I was like, I don't pronounce words.
I was like, maybe it's a funny name.
It's hard to talk and write at the same time. Okay?
Especially with vertigo.
Yeah, especially with vertigo. I'm like very busy up here. Okay, so discriminant. The next column, we're going to talk about the root. Now, what are the roots? Zeros. What else? Okay, let's write all that down. Root, zero. What else? Solution. X-intercept.
Are they?
1, 2, 3, 4. There's one more word. Answer. Okay? Answer. All right. So discriminant, we're going to talk about the root. Then we're going to talk about, will that do factor? Remember how I told you the discriminant will tell you if it'll factor or not. And then we're going to talk about, if I were looking at a graph, what would it look like? What's going to happen on my graph? Okay? All right, here's the first one. What if the discriminant is equal to 0? Now, we worked one like this, didn't we? Okay? So let's see what you remember. If the discriminant is equal to 0, now where is the discriminant, guys?
It's under the
Under the radical. Okay, so that means you're going to have plus or minus the square root of 0. So, how many roots will I have? 1. Will it be real or imaginary? Real. Will it be rational or irrational? Why? Because now, rational doesn't mean real. What does rational mean you will not have?
And never ending.
radical.
A radical. That's exactly what it means. This will be a real rational. Why? Y'all, there will not be a radical because what number's under the radical? 0. The square root of 0 is 0. So one real rational root. And then what did you tell me about it? It's a totally. You're kidding me. That one little number tells me all that. Will it factor?
Perhaps.
Yeah. Not only will it factor, what is it? There you go. It's a perfect square. So we're going to do this. We're going to say, yeah, not only does he factor, but he factors into a binomial square. Okay? Now, on a graph, what's this thing look like? What is that discriminant telling me about this graph and these roots? That's exactly right. My vertex is on the x-axis. Awesome. All right, what if I had this? What if my discriminant was positive and not a perfect square? Positive and not a perfect square. Okay. How many roots? people. You got a positive number under the radical. It's real. Rational or irrational? Why? It's not a perfect square, so what are you going to have in your answer? A radical. Y'all, that's what that word is telling you. If it's irrational, he's saying, hey man, you're going to have a square root in your answer. So, two real irrational roots. Is he going to factor? Have you ever factored and had a square root? You can't factor. You can work all day, you'll never factor in. Okay? What about on the graph? What's he going to have? 2x intercept. Okay? Not two vertexes. What's that? That's a thrifty brain or something, right? Bigger than. So it has 2x intercept. Okay, anybody got a question? Everybody okay?
Okay, so if it's positive, so it's going to be non-perfect square, it's going to be
Right. Okay. Now, what about this? What if it's positive and a perfect square?
Well, that's just great.
Okay. How many roots? Two. Real or imaginary? Rational or irrational? Rational. Why? It's a perfect square. There'll be no radical, people. You can take its square root. Okay? So, two real, rational. And look, here's what I do to myself. I'm writing me a little note up here. It says, hey, there's not going to be a radical in this number. Two real, rational roots. Is he going to factor? Yes. Oh, yes, he's going to factor. Okay? What about my graph? What's he going to have? 2x intercept. That's exactly what it's going to have. All right, one more. What's the only other thing that's positive? Oh, there you go. Negative. What if a number, now look, I'm talking about my discriminant. Where's the discriminant located? Under the radical. What if you got a negative number under the radical? How many roots will you have?
1. No,
2. What's making that 2? That's plus or minus. Very good. 2. Real? No. Imaginary. Okay? 2 imaginary roots. Sometimes they'll have a radical and sometimes they won't. The one that we did was what? 2 plus or minus I. It didn't have a radical because negative 4 was a perfect square. Okay? But if it had been like negative 12, then that would have had that 2I square root of 2. Okay? Now, will it factor?
No.
No, we had never factored with I. What about on my graph? How many x-intercepts? None. Look, you can write it however you want to, people. It does not, that's right, it's imaginary. It does not cross the x-axis. No x-intercept.
So that one would be like example 3.
That's exactly right. Okay.
This is what we really don't want.
No.
What is an actual root, like in the equation?
Oh, it's the answer.
Oh,
Okay, it's just the answer. This is telling you what kind of answers. Look, that's what I wrote. 0 solutions, x-intercepts, and answers. Okay? Now, listen to me. This is the questions on the test. Okay? This is what the question's going to be. I'm going to give you an equation. It's going to say, find the discriminant and tell me the nature of the root. Find the discriminant and tell me about the root. Find the discriminant. What kind of roots are you going to have? Okay? What if my discriminant is 7? What if my discriminant is 7? What? Give everybody a chance to think. Okay? The discriminant is 7.
That's a question about the way.
Yes?
Okay, it has to do with grade. Like, in the grade book, you know, on Skyward it gives a class average. Is that just our class or is that every class?
No, it's just your class, and y'all be really careful looking at the class average and going, see, Mom, nobody, I mean, the class average was a 50, because if you don't take the whole entire test, what do I do when I put my grade in there? I put a 0 in there, and a 0 is going to skew that class average, okay? So you be careful doing that, all right?
So that's just for this one.
Yes, that's only for that one class. And that's what I use to do the tick mark to see who gets the party at the end of the year. Okay? So every time we take a test, I look at the class averages, and whoever has the highest class average, that class gets a tick mark. Whoever has the most tick marks at the end of the year, they get a party. Okay? So. Oh. All right, Spencer, what was it? -7 is my discriminant. Tell me about the root.
It's two real irrational.
Perfect. See, 7 is positive, not a perfect square, so I have two real irrational roots. Is it going to factor?
Yeah.
Is it going to cross the x-axis? How many times? Do y'all see with this chart? Y'all listen, you got to know this chart.
How do we know that it crosses?
Because my roots are real numbers, and what are the roots? They are x-intercept.
So whenever you look at it, it'd be, say, -4 plus or minus, and the square root has a plus or minus.
That's giving you those two. It's going to be a little decimal. If we did it on the calculator, we could check it. And that's what that worksheet's going to be all about. We're going to start pulling all that stuff together. Okay?
Whatever you did last year.
We're going to start on it. I hope to start on it Monday. Okay? I think I have one class, that last three class, they didn't quite get finished, but it was partly my fault because I was to nurse, and then they really did that for so long. All right, so we got like 4 problems to do, okay? So let's do them down here. Here's the directions to 3 of the problems. Find the discriminant and give the nature of the root. Okay? Now listen to me. Did I just teach this to you? Is it on that chart? This is exactly like the test question. Should you miss them?
No.
Okay, you're saying that, but listen to me. Did I teach you how to do this?
Yeah.
And on the test, what in the world happened to you people?
Wait, actually, I don't know. I'm still confused.
Come on, people. I teach you how to do something in class, and guess what I'm going to ask you on the test? How to do it. Okay? Do you know how many people couldn't even do this problem? It's insane.
I have a question.
How do you do
Yeah.
that?
Say you have 3 minus 3i over 4i. Do you multiply the
That's
top?
wrong. You multiply by I.
You multiply by 4i. Okay, I understand.
Remember, we did a problem like that. Our problem, remember, I think the problem that we did in class was something like this. 5 over 2i. And I said, what's the problem? And y'all said, oh, yeah, no, it's the denominator. I'm like, yay, way to go, people. What do you do? And y'all said, multiply by 2i. And I'm like, oh. You said the problem was the I. The 2's not a problem. Who said you can't have a 2 in the denominator? Okay, but Spencer, could I multiply by 2i and still get the right answer?
Yes, you got to reduce.
That's exactly right.
Oh, yeah, I got that.
It's just going to be 10i over, this is going to be what? 4i squared. Now, here's what someone else did. Someone else said they multiplied by 2i, but then when they did this, they just got 2i squared.
Oh, so. Hey, I got nothing. I got nothing.
So it's over -4, and it would reduce down to be -5i over 2.
Yeah, I opened up the test, I looked at number 1, and I just blanked out.
I got that one. Nope.
Okay, so here's the first problem. Here we go. A, x squared minus 8x plus 17 equals 0. You got 2 minutes, people. 2 minutes. You tell me what the discriminant is And tell me the nature of the root. You can use a calculator if you want to. All right. Everybody got it?
Not 2 minutes.
Oh, hurry, because we got some problems to do. You what? I'm gonna take a day and go over part of it with you, and I'm not, first of all, everybody has to take it, okay? I'll take them all, I can't do it back, but, like, if you wanna come in, after everybody's taking it, if you wanna come in in the morning, you can sit down at the desk and look at it, and answer any questions that you have, okay? It's a good idea to do that, right? Very good idea. Abby?
When you say give the nature of your stimulus, which one on the which?
Okay, so y'all get the discriminant to be -4, so tell me about your root. 2 imaginary. Is it gonna factor? No. When you graph it, can you check your roots on your calculator? No, because it's not gonna cross the x-axis, people. Okay? Alright, let's do another one. B, x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals 0. Tell me what the discriminant is. Tell me about those roots. Don't get to the discriminant. 0. So tell me about the root. One real rational root. What should I write? DR, the double root. Very good. Very good. Okay, let's do this. Here's the last one, a fifth. X squared minus 8x plus 15 equals 0. X squared minus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Find the discriminant. 4 problems like this on the test, people.
Can I, go?
Alright, you got it? What'd you get for the discriminant? 4. So tell me about the root. Perfect. Can I factor it? Why? Why? It's a perfect square. Y'all, if it's a perfect square, it factors. Okay? And that includes 0. So 0 is a perfect square of... Alright. So that's what you're looking for. If you want to know if something's factor, find its discriminant. If it's a perfect square, boom, that thing will factor. Okay, so we're going to work one more problem. Jody, will you bring me my book on the desk, please, so I can get up?
Did you take a test of what the overall class average is for the county?
No. I'm going to guess it's higher than us. I'm going to guess it's probably around the 60.
That's what our class is.
Oh, you mean overall with all the classes? I don't know. I don't even know. Yeah. All right, let's do this problem, and then we'll be through, okay? Example 3. This is the last example in section 8, so we'll be finished with section 8. Talking about a juggler, okay? Not your jugular, okay, but a juggler, like a clown person that will juggle things, right? And we're not juggling machetes or chainsaws or flaming knives or anything, okay? Just balls. So here we go. A juggler tosses, now listen to it and let's write down the important stuff. When I say something important, you say, whoa, and we'll write it down. A juggler tosses a ball into the air.
Wow.
The ball leaves the juggler's hand 4 feet above the ground. Oh, wait.
What is that?
4 feet above the ground. What is that?
What's the starting?
So what's it called?
The initial
H
height.
0.
sub-zero is equal to 4. Now, why is it sub-zero? What does that 0 mean? Yeah, and here's what it's saying, guys. This makes sense. When time is 0, that's the height of it. Okay, so that's why it started. All right, at 4 feet above the ground and has an initial velocity of 40 feet per second. Okay, so what's that? V sub-0 at 40 feet per second. All right? The juggler catches the ball when it falls back to a height of 3 feet. What's that? Ending. So that's just my plain age. All right? How long is the ball in the air? So I'm looking for my time. All right? Now, anybody know what formula? That's exactly right. I would give it to you on the test. Okay? They give it to us in the book. It is h is equal to negative 16t squared plus b sub ot plus h sub o. Y'all remember that? Let's plug in all our stuff. What's h? 3 is equal to negative 16t squared plus, what's b sub o? 40. Plus, what's h sub o? Got them all right there, guys. Okay? What do I need to do to it? Do what? No? Yeah. You've got to set it equal to 0, guys. You cannot. I'm going to use the quadratic formula. Now listen to me. Y'all, will the quadratic formula work all the time? Yeah. That's the coolest part about it. Can I always factor? No. Is factoring the easiest? Yes, but you can't always do it. That's what's so nice about the quadratic formula. You can always do it. Okay? Always do it. So tell me what A is. What's B? What's C?
So factoring's like passing the test. It's nice when you can do it, but you can't always do it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So negative B. So that's going to be negative 40, right? Plus or minus the square root of 40 squared minus 4 times A is negative 16 times C is 1. All over 2 times negative 16. X is equal to negative 40 plus or minus. Well, I don't know. 4b squared is what, 1600? 2 negatives make a positive, and 4 times 16 is 64. So that's 1664. I'm going to guess that 1664 is not a perfect square. Okay, so everybody agree got 2 answers up here, right? Okay, One of them's gonna be negative 40 plus the square root of 1664 over negative 32. And the other one's gonna be negative 40 minus the square root of 1664 over negative 32. How am I gonna know which one is the answer to my question? The positive one. So you're going to have to figure out which one it is. I'm assuming it's gonna be this one, because this is gonna be a negative over a negative, okay? And that's gonna be my positive. And then you would know the other one, no, he doesn't work. You understand? Everybody understand? Okay. Good job. Good job.
Can you go ahead and make the 32 positive right now? And get the 40
Sure, if you wanted to. But look, this is a real life problem. What should you do with these two things? You should use your calculator, okay, and round them off to like 2 decimal places. And it is in seconds, okay? Anybody got, you want the positive one, don't do the negative one. So it's making it
So it would be the negative 40 kind of.
yeah, I think, I'm pretty sure it is. All right, so, let's try.